Hi, everyone. I am so excited to have my next guest on my podcast and on her podcast. We're actually doing this together, we're collaborating. Gila Glassberg is here with me today. Gila Glassberg is a intuitive eating counselor, a certified intuitive eating counselor.
Hmm.
She has her master's in what?
Nutrition.
Nutrition. And we're going to explore her journey today on the podcast. It's going to be on her podcast as well. Welcome, Gila, on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
We've been wanting to do this for a very long time, actually, ever since we met each other at the Kavana conference. Do you remember
Which,
that?
yeah, which I am remembering now, which was over
A
a
year
year ago.
ago.
A year ago,
Yes. It was
February,
like exactly a year
January.
ago. And lo and behold, COVID hit, and then everything was just virtual ever since then.
It's
But
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy. I'm very happy to see you actually online.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this with me. I'm so excited.
I'm actually very fascinated by your work. We are living in a very highly political climate where everything is politicized right now. Um, Religion, weight, eating, you name it, it's politicized. Our identity right now, but the body positivity movement is getting lots of positivity, but it's also getting lots of negativity. So,
Hmm.
you're an intuitive eating counselor. Can you just tell us why you decided to become an intuitive eating counselor as opposed to just a regular dietitian?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Here goes my life story.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I always say this. You probably heard me say this, but I'm one of nine. I'm the fourth of nine. And my mother didn't always make sure that we ate healthy. She just made sure that we ate. So I remember, I reflect on my childhood eating all the time because that's what I do with my clients. But I'm always when I think back to my childhood, I think it was very laissez-faire, um eat whatever's around. We had a lot of sorry mommy, but we had lots of frozen dinners during the week. My mother would cook tons on Shabbos, but we would eat we reminisce about frozen broccoli quiches with all that cheese and margarine or whatever. I don't even think I knew the word diet really as a kid. I think my parents dieted, but they never put that on us. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have anything, I didn't think about really what I ate or what I shouldn't eat or I shouldn't be eating this. But I actually went away for high school. I boarded in Teaneck. So I'm an out of towner. I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania. No kosher restaurants there. And then I lived a few blocks away from a pizza store, all of a sudden. So I went for pizza every single day. And then that summer, ninth grade, the summer going into 10th grade, I went to Mosheva. So um I never went to Mosheva until that summer. So when I went, you got canteen. I remember eating a Chipwich and a Gatorade every day. And I'm like, this is awesome. Um, and the funny thing is that that summer, you just hike a lot. And I remember think when I came back, people make comments that I had gained weight, or I felt like I had gained weight. And that was at that time, so many of my friends were talking about dieting and um like everybody's I'm so fat, I'm disgusting, I hate my body. And it was just I kind of absorbed that really quickly, okay, this is what you do in high school, I guess. And we had competitions, who's going to lose more weight. And I remember one competition, it was 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night, and I'm like, I need to eat pizza. And my friend was like, you can't eat pizza. You're we're have a competition. I'm like, I don't care. I just felt so deprived. It was so weird. And yeah. And then I just felt really out of control around food. I what am I going to eat? And I need to be on a diet, I need to lose weight. I felt really uncomfortable in my body. And so what happened was I distinctly remember thinking instead of cutting carbs or cutting something like candy or whatever, I'm just gonna try not to eat, which is so horrible, such a horrible thing to think. But for me that worked. I had that sense of control. I lost a lot of weight. I was obsessed with the scale. I would weigh myself multiple times a day, wishing the number was lower and lower and lower. And it was pretty scary actually, you know, like had lots of food rules, and it was kind of scary, like, you know, like,
Wow.
yeah.
I noticed that you acquire this from your surroundings at school and your friends. Whereas I feel like most people gain this insecurity from their families or the home they grow up in. So I grew up from a very different family than you, where it wasn't a laissez faire type of thing. It was more like everyone was very self conscious about what they ate.
Mm-hmm.
And the food always had to be healthy. My mom always tried to make sure there was no junk food in the house. And there was always chicken and vegetables and salad. And there was always this fear like, oh, you can't eat that. This is not good. This is unhealthy, quote unquote, unhealthy. We can't eat this. It wasn't so much like, oh, you can't eat this food. Like, none of us can eat this type of food.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like with me, listening to your experience, it's very interesting. Like, we both felt uncomfortable with our bodies at one point, and we both struggled with food and dieting and eating, but it came from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I got it more from like the home I grew up in. No offense to like anyone in my
Right.
family. I'm not
Right.
trying to like bring them down. It's just the culture
Right.
that we were raised in. And you grew up in a family where eating wasn't an issue. Like, eat what you want. Life is great. La di da.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that you
It
got
is
that
really
from like your
interesting.
friends.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because like my friends were sort of like my family in high school, even though like I love my family. I love you guys if you're listening. But and I'm really close with, I happen to be really, really close with all my like all my siblings. Yeah, all my siblings were all really close. Um so yeah, that's like amazing. But I wasn't close with them as when I was in high school, for sure not. Like I didn't even live with any of them, you know, like some like I have a sister a year older than me. She lives in Philadelphia. Like we didn't even board together. Like we didn't live together. So yeah, that was like I went to my friend, like if any of my friends are listening, like shout out to you. I went to their houses every single Shabbos. Like I was like away, you know, like I was living with my friends basically. So I guess that really makes sense. Honestly, like I've like reflected on this story so many times, but like I didn't live at home. So like I don't know, like I don't ever plan on sending my kids away for school. I can't
Right.
imagine. And like to know, you know, I'm not blaming anybody, but yeah, it kind of just went under the radar. But I wouldn't even say it went under the radar. I would say that I was praised. I was really, really praised. Like if I had seen any of my family members, hadn't seen them for a while, or a friend or whatever, like they were like, you got so skinny. Oh my gosh, how did you do it? And that's just like, you know, I was a very insecure child, super, super self-conscious, insecure. So to get that type of positive attention, it was like addictive, you know?
At what
So
point did you realize that your body wasn't good enough? If you like loved pizza and everything was great, was it during puberty? Was it when you started to notice boys? Like, what, at what point did you notice that struggle?
I think it was after like I came back from camp that summer, and I had gained a lot of weight. I was eating like a lot that I wasn't, you know, I wasn't like and my mom did have rules. Like she wasn't, I think I don't remember exactly, but I remember like we weren't allowed to bring like candy type of food to school, but we were allowed to bring like pretzel type of food, you know, like that type of stuff. I remember coming home from school and like eating like a box of graham crackers, because now I totally understand. I was like really, really hungry, you know, like kids get hungry at like 4:35ish. Like I have dinner ready for my kids when they come home. They're hungry for a meal, you know. So if you don't have a meal ready, they're gonna eat a snacks worth
Right.
of meals, you know. Um, but yeah, and also yeah, definitely boys, just a lot of that, like you know, I wouldn't say worthiness, I would say just talking. There's a diet culture that women sort of like, or
Yeah,
girls, or
let's talk about that. The diet culture.
yeah, so diet, well, first of all, diet culture is like woman culture, right, in a way. Not, I'm not saying that
Yeah, they
there
do
is,
it too, but it's
they
more
do it too. I know.
pervasive.
I hear it now, by the way. And a lot of my family members who are male talk about their dieting also. But I mean, like, there's a lot of bonding that goes with dieting. Like, I would say that I'm thinking like, this is coming out for me right now, but I'm thinking like when I was doing that diet competition with a friend, like that was really bonding, you know, like when I'm like saying like, I'm so fat and no, you're not fat, I'm fat or whatever, like there's a lot of like bonding there. So that makes a lot of sense to me that, you know, teenage girls bond over dieting, and you feel kind of awkward in your body anyways, because of the stage that you're in. You're not like finished
Yeah.
growing,
Yeah.
you know, so it's sort of just like perfect breeding grounds for, you know, this type of things.
Right. So tell us a little bit about after high school. So you noticed that you were eating a lot, you were overeating, and then
Yeah.
what happened after
What
that?
happened to me is that I went through this, like, I would say probably borderline eating disorder, where I wasn't really eating, lost a lot of weight, got lots of compliments. Um and so for me, I went away on a trip with my two really good friends. We went to California in 11th grade for our midwinter break. Actually, it was really fun. Um and I guess like they were kind of seeing how I was eating or how I wasn't eating, and they were like, "What are you doing?" Like, and I was like, "Oh my God, I got caught," you know, like, and then I was like, "Yeah, they're kind of right. Like, I'm obsessed. Like, I barely eat, you know, it was kind of scary, but um knowing what I know now, that could have spiraled, but that kind of like break sort of helped me to be like, okay, this isn't healthy. So what is healthy? It happens to be like I was like, okay, I want to be a nutritionist. You know, like when I was in 11th grade, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Like I want to get into the firm schools. I was like so into it, and like I was so not a student. Like I barely like got through high school. Like seriously, I barely got through high school. Who knows what I was doing in high school, you know? Like I didn't live at home, so like actually I had my oldest sister Yali, she's a doctor, and she was in Queens College when I was in Teaneck. So she was living here actually, like at a friend's house. And like when she was like a mother to me. Also, when she saw my report card in ninth grade, she's like, nobody doesn't pass ninth grade. I'm coming to school and I'm taking you to study. And she like, it's really funny. She like took me to Queens College and she's like, you're studying. So yeah, I wasn't a student, and I was like, I didn't realize that like a nutritionist is really a dietitian. I didn't realize like it's a real science heavy degree. So yeah, so what happened for me is that like I wasn't in that like eating disorder mindset anymore, but I was very meticulous about what I was eating. So anyone who knew me, you know, there was like the joke, like I was like, ask you that what's healthy, what's not healthy, whatever. And in seminary, like I went running a lot, like I exercised a lot. I was very, very meticulous about what I ate. But it kind of started to wear off. Like I wasn't, it slowly, slowly weared off. So I wasn't as like crazy, but like I was still very conscious of what I was eating and very conscious about my weight. I didn't really weigh myself. I think because I had developed a sort of an aversion to it because of what I went through in high school. I was so addicted to the scale. It was like scary. Um, but
Same.
yeah,
Yeah. Everything you're saying is really resonating with me.
you have a
I
similar
hear you.
experience.
I hear you in my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
Except I don't become a dietitian and nutritionist. No, it's just I also became obsessed with food. I would
Yeah,
wake up and I would think about what exactly am I eating today.
right.
I wrote
Hmm.
everything down, how
Of
many calories
course.
every
Right,
single thing
right.
had. I finished breakfast. I would think about what I'm eating for lunch. After I eat lunch, I'm thinking about what I'm eating for dinner, what
Yeah,
the whole week. And
yeah,
all my activities and nights out with friends were all revolved around what am I allowed to eat.
right.
I also became obsessed with the scale.
Hmm.
I owned a scale and I was going on it maybe like 20 times a day.
Yeah, me too. I
Before
remember.
food, after food,
Right,
seeing if it
right.
made a difference. The
Yeah,
numbers would
yeah,
really make a big difference on my emotions.
right.
You
Yeah,
know, if a
yeah,
number was up, I was depressed the whole
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Number was down, I was, you know,
yeah. Hmm.
fake
It's fake.
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting because I like sort of like analyze this a lot with my clients. I think that that number, it's just part of us humans wanting to quantify things, you know? So
Yeah.
like if I am X pounds and then tomorrow I'm Y pounds, that means that I did something to get there. So powerful. You know, I hear a client say that a lot, like, I'm powerful, I have control, I could change my body, I could change anything. You know, it gives you that false sense of control, which is exactly what it is, a false sense of control. So yeah, so that's where I knew I wanted to be a dietitian. I wanted to help the frum world. Let me speed up the story because it's getting, like, I told it so many times, it's boring. And
Not at
um
all.
okay, so what happened for me is that I definitely, like, stayed on, like, the healthy eating track, you know, like, and it was confusing to me. Like, I felt like when I was being a little more restrictive, I was a little bit more bingy. Like, I felt like that happening, but I was still like, I got this, I got this. I just have to learn more. I just have to learn more. So I actually didn't get into Queens College because I didn't go, barely got through to high school. So I went to Queensboro. Then I went to Queens College, and I was like, they were telling me all about the nutrition field. And I was like, I can't do that. It's not going to happen. Like, that's too much science. But, like, there was a part of me that just, I really wanted to do it. So I really pushed myself, and I thank God, like, once I started, I was like, I could do this, but it was hard. It was really grueling for me. And I got married while I was in Queens College. I had a baby. It was so hard. And I remember when I recently was doing this meditation with Tony Robbins. I know not everybody likes him, but he says, like, think about a moment when you're proud. And literally, like, the day that I passed my RD exam, I, like, was the proudest because
That's great. That's great.
but it slowly came crashing down because once I started working in the field, I was like, I am the food police. That should just be written on my, you know, my white coat in the nursing home. Like, I'm the food police. Nobody wants to tell me what they ate. I was like, this is horrible. Like, I knew instinctively or intuitively, like, something was up, but I was like, shoot, like, I already figured out something was up. And that's why I got my degree in nutrition.
Mm.
So now what? What do I do now? You know?
But people surprisingly like going to a food police as opposed to regular police because they feel like I need someone to be strict with me. I need someone to be
Yeah.
tough,
Right.
to discipline me.
I'm not a police. Like, I hate that. I'm
Yeah.
very not like that. Like, if, like, it just, my personality is very, like, that's not how I guess I knew that, like, instinctively, like, that's just not how we grow or change or feel motivated when somebody's like, you ate that? Like, even when
Yeah.
I'm imitating, I'm pretending, you ate that? What's wrong with you? Like, it hurts me. Like, only people who were abused would go to a dietitian like that. I'm really sorry to say that
Oh
on
my
air,
God.
but it's an abused model to feel manipulated or scream that into change. It doesn't work. It never works.
When you say abuse, it could be even like verbal abuse.
A verbal abuse, yes. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about physical abuse. But my story is, like, a little bit, like, with a little bit of a twist here, is that I was really depressed. I felt really, really depressed. Like, what on earth am I going to do now?
After you
I
achieve this.
Right. I was just like, what do I do? Like, I hate my job, and, like, whatever. So, and also, it happens to be my husband was learning in cola, and I was like, you have to, like, I felt myself very, like, attacking him about what he had to change, even though he was perfectly happy. So that, at the same time that I was like all of this, I had recently read the Surrendered Wife by Laura Doyle. Did you read it?
I purchased it, but I think I only read one chapter.
So you're not like a gung ho fan of Laura Doyle.
Um, I did appreciate something she said, but I have like attention issues and I just
Uh-huh.
switch books every
Got
so
it.
every few months.
Oh yeah,
But
you should
I'm
see
gonna
my
look into
dresser
it.
with the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should read it.
But
You
I
should.
do have it. But
Yeah.
she changed the title, it's The
Yeah, I know.
Empowered Wife.
When I read it, it was The Surrendered Wife, and
I
I
know.
am happy to call it that. I don't have an issue with it, but I understand that people do.
So tell us some wisdom from that book.
Okay, so my sister-in-law, actually, Lonnie, she told me about this book, and I was like, no, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I felt so like, ugh, this book, whatever. But when I read it, I was like, this kind of makes sense because, like, let's say, for example, like she said, um, there's so many things I could say that are coming up for me, but, like, let's say, like, we have this fear, when something's not right in our life, we look to our husbands and try to change them instead of internally. It was so much easier for me to be like, you should leave cola, we need money, than for me to be like, okay, I don't like working in a nursing home and I don't know what else to do, because when I look on Indeed and I ask around, everybody says those are the only nursing home jobs. Shoot, 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 shoot. Why did I just spend 7 years getting my undergraduate degree and my master's? Now what? So instead of working on this problem, I'm going to nag my husband, right? So that was happening a lot, and I remember reading the chapter on self-care, which she said, like, it sounds so obvious to me now, but she said, like, when you're starting to feel like angry or resentful towards your husband, obviously not always, but sometimes, check in to see how your self-care is doing. And I was like, what does my self-care have to do with my husband? Like, how does this even? But now it's like super obvious to me. Like when I'm upstairs and I'm like, you never help me with dinner and you never, I'm like, okay, I need to go onto my exercise bike because I love to spin. I need to go call my friend. I need some like lotion or something, like, and then like it's all good, like even if he didn't help me with dinner, like I could process that or handle it better. So it was all just okay. That was that. Okay. So then I heard this. This sounds so random, but I heard this parenting lecture by Parala Bromwitz.
Yes, I know her too.
You know her?
Yeah. I've gone
Okay.
to some of her workshops.
And she's like, I heard her speak on Tour Anytime, and I was like, who is this woman? You know what? Also, like, I'm one of 9, right? I said this, and like, my love language is quality time.
Mine
And
too.
so, really?
Yep.
So we should hang out.
Yeah, we need to.
So this is perfect. So I was like, it just clicked, like things that she was saying, because she talks about the love languages and the surrendered wife. She was the things that I was learning a little bit on my own. She was integrating, and she's really funny, and she's just very, easy to listen to, and she's moving. She's very moving. So I ended up, I heard her speak publicly, and I drove her home because she doesn't drive. She's Hasidish. And she was like, I was telling her my whole dilemma, which like now is so funny for me to think about. Like she probably just didn't want to talk. She probably just wanted to like drive home. But I was like telling her my whole life. And then she's like, well, I do private counseling if you wanted to come to me. And I was like, that was sort of like that, the interface where I was saying about my husband and nagging him and being, I was like, okay, I hate spending money. I have this financial anxiety piece also, but I was like toying with this idea, like I am going to get to the root of what's really bothering me. Like, is it that I have to make myself like this job, or is it that I have to find something else? And that was like a 3-year dilemma, honestly. But the start of finding myself in this path was going to Peril for a session. Like I always think back to that session, and Peril, I told her all these things, and she's like, have you ever heard about intuitive eating?
Hmm.
And I had never once heard about it.
Wow. It just comes to show like there's moments in life and people we meet that really can change our life forever.
And she really did.
She is the person who basically made who you are today, what
Right.
you're practicing today.
Yes, she is. And I thank her profusely if she ever listens to this. And even if she doesn't, um, I like, it changed my life. It did change my life. And I remember saying to her, she's like, I'm like, I hate my job. She's like, do you ever think in the morning when you get up, like, I'm like, I'm leaving before they even go to school. My babysitter's putting them in the carpool. She's like, do you ever think as you're walking to your car, like, I'm a hero and my husband's going to yeshiva? And I'm like, I never think that once. And I don't think that now. And like, she's like, then what if you gave yourself like a deadline? Like by Pesach, if I don't find another job, I'm leaving. I'm like, leaving without another job? Who's going to have the health insurance? Like all this, like, going back to the surrendered wife, like and never like giving my husband the permission to take care of the things that like I knew he could take care of, or I needed the control. So there was a lot of like this interface of like, that's why I think I do happen to think intuitive eating spills over into all aspects of your life.
Parenting, marriage,
Yes.
relationships.
Yes.
So,
Right.
can you tell us how intuitive eating spills into all these other areas in your life? Doesn't it just have to do with eating?
Right. Right. So the thing about that is, I'll just say, like, when I was explaining this to her, she was like, have you ever heard of, like, let's say Overeaters Anonymous? She was trying to tell me like all these different things about that interface, like nutrition and psychology. So she had heard of Rena Reiser, who's another intuitive eating counselor who is
Yes.
amazing. And I contacted her and she told me about intuitive eating, and we're good friends, and she's taught me so much of what I know. And so I read the book. I ordered the book that day or whatever, and I read it. I'm like, Oh, that's why I was binging on pizza in high school
Which
and
book?
intuitive eating.
Oh, the one by what's her name?
Evelyn
Evelyn
Tribole
Tribole?
and Elise Resch. Yeah. So I ordered the book and I was like, how come I never heard about this? How come this is so well researched? Where have I been my whole life? I even like emailed some of my professors in college. I'm like, did you guys know about this? Like,
Why is this hidden?
yeah, like what's going on, you know? So, and also, you know, Rena added me to like a WhatsApp chat with other intuitive eating professionals, dietitians and speech therapists and OTs. And there was all this connection, like this huge amount of connection that I was definitely lacking in my nursing home job. So anyways, so intuitive eating is, it's very intuitive, but there's 10 principles and they're all designed to help you heal your relationship with food. So when I work with my clients, the authors are very clear that you don't have to work in any specific order of the principles, and they really are not linear at all. They just happen to be. I haven't heard. I mean, when I get into something, I like become obsessed. Like I listen to probably like a million interviews by Laura Doyle and the authors of intuitive eating. That's just the way I am. So I remember them saying that like when they wrote the book, the whoever was publishing it said like this would sell better, this would look better as like 10 principles. So that's really why it's divided like that. It's a little bit easier to digest it, but there
It's
is
a
no,
lot to digest. It is.
it's a lot to digest. Yes.
I mean, even today, I've been hearing about intuitive eating for the last 3 years, and I still I question it here
Mm-hmm.
and there
Mm-hmm.
because that little voice in my head is still like, but what if I want to lose weight? Or
Right, 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 right.
what if I don't feel good with extra
Mm-hmm.
pounds? Or
Yeah,
does this mean we can eat everything
right.
all the time?
Yeah.
So I still have those voices in my head.
Yeah. So that's okay. So let me address that.
Yeah.
And I want to answer your question about intuitive eating and intuitive living because that's a really
Yes,
important
I would
question.
love that.
So, so I say this all the time to my clients. If you've been surrounded by diet culture for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, one session with me or one book isn't going to change that. It's not the way that our self-talk works, right? That's not the way that our belief system works. It doesn't work like that. But um if you, let's say, it also depends on what your goal is. So if you're still attached to the idea that like weight loss can be a good thing, or wanting to lose weight, like if I have a symptom coming up, I should be allowed to lose weight, that's totally fine. You can't
Well, I don't
expect.
get that impression sometimes.
Right. So I will say that when I first heard about intuitive eating, I didn't have Instagram. The only reason why I started Instagram was for the business.
Yeah.
And I question if I still really want to, you know, because of it's whatever. It has its pros and its cons, let's
Yeah,
say.
exactly.
So I will say, let's just compare that to everything. Everything has its pros and its cons. Um, so diet culture, I'm not going to say diet culture has its pros, but I'm saying I learned like I came into this field because I was really passionate about nutrition and feeding people healthy and teaching people about their relationship with food, right? So diet culture is an extreme, and then the anti-diet has an extreme side to it too. And I don't believe in either of those sides.
Thank you for bringing that up
Yeah.
because you don't see the nuance. You don't see the in the middle.
Right. Right. Right.
You only see one side or the other.
Right.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so I understand people who are really, really, really angry at diet culture, and because like I see severe cases in my office that people were abused with dieting. People were abused because they're in larger bodies, and it's painful. It's painful for me to hear and to even talk about. It's like brings like tears to my eyes because it's not people who are in thin bodies or people who have never been manipulated with their dieting or their weight. They can't even for a second fathom the pain that these people, myself included. I mean, I don't consider myself in a fat body, but just
There
I
is
don't
a
know.
difference.
Yeah, there's a difference, but like I could still understand on some level like what it's like to like walk into like a store that caters to like smaller bodies and be like,
Yeah.
nothing fits me in this store. So like I get that it's worse for people who are in like, let's say, fat bodies,
Yeah, me too.
but it's of course they're angry, and of course they feel like this justice, that there's a social justice movement. Do I like think about what happened with George Floyd? Was that wrong? Was it wrong to start hurting people? It's we have to have a balance. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
exactly.
I could understand where people are coming from when they're really angry and they're passionately against diet culture. I completely understand. That's not my stance because I don't believe in that as who I am and my value system. But I think that
Because I feel like it just perpetuates victimhood when people
right,
do that.
right,
And it doesn't like solve any issues. It just
right,
polarizes people
right.
more. And
Yes.
people think that because they're fat, they're just blaming it on quote unquote diet culture and not doing anything to heal themselves.
Right.
Just angry and bitter and blaming society for their problems and not doing anything about it. When I say not doing anything about it, I'm not saying they're not losing weight. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that they're not healing their relationship with food. And instead of blaming society and the media and these magazine covers, get to know yourself, figure it out, go to
Mm-hmm.
therapy, do what you need
Right.
to do.
Right.
I don't
So
know. That's what my
let's
idea is.
so think about it. Like what I was saying before about the surrendered wife. Like it's much easier to look outside of yourself and be like, that's messed up. I'm angry about that. And I totally get that. And like I guess just to like say I was there, like I was blaming my husband for things that I needed to take accountability for. But like, I wasn't aware of it, or I couldn't access myself, or for whatever reason, so like I do understand like both sides. And again, like we don't we are in a way like privileged in our bodies, right? So like I hear like the deepest sadness in my office. Like I
Yeah,
understand why they could cling to a movement that's letting
right.
them. So I understand that,
To validate their experience.
to validate their experience, to give them a place to vent. And I think they're taking it and running with it because like you're kind of like thin bodies, and the thin ideal has been so pronounced. So now that there's another culture, they're like, let's go with this. So I understand.
But people in thin bodies also suffer with poor body image. People with
100%.
very thin bodies think they're obese,
Right. 100%.
overweight.
Right. 100%. 100%. I
I mean,
always I
people
always say
dream to be in their bodies.
right. So I have a few opinions about that. Like I know when I before Corona, I did some live lectures like in my house by myself with Rachel Tuckman, some other
Yeah, yeah, I
therapists.
remember that.
Yeah, so I remember like after the workshop, and I get so many like cool ideas from like, when people share their ideas. She said like, I have a friend who's really thin, and whenever she's complaining, everybody says to her like, you don't have a right to complain because you're thin, which is really horrible. Thin people don't have better lives. Just like rich people don't have better lives, just like fat people don't have, whatever. They have their challenges. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying like that's really disgusting that she would be like shamed for being thin, or like, discriminated against in a way. And then another woman like raised her hand and was like really berating her body, like, I can't look at myself in the mirror, I'm disgusted, whatever. And like someone came over to me after and was like, that woman's beautiful, like that's so
Yeah,
sad. I'm like, we all do that, like we all have this like horrible inner critic. And like it's kind of just, I don't know, it comes from, I heard Kayla Levin, she has a podcast also,
yes.
first year married. She said like the beauty industry makes you feel like you're 20, like you have 20% more to be like beautiful. Like you're 80%, but like if you get this eyeliner, if you lose weight, if you get that dress, like, and I'm so conscious of it now when I listen to marketing. I'm like, they are literally telling me that if I had that cream, like I would make money. Like they're just like, I understand like marketing, whatever, but like it's horrible. And we have to be aware of how media, I'm not saying there's any, like I have social media and I get it, like it has enhanced my life. We never would have met,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
we have to be armed with the awareness that it's hurting us in a lot of ways. And like, I have my days where I'm on Instagram and I could look at your following versus my following, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? I need to post more. I need to whatever. Like we all suffer from this like comparisonitis. And then media makes it worse, because like, if you think about it, back in the day, we didn't have like people to always be comparing ourselves to, and like
Now we're
seeing their
constantly
lives.
comparing all day long.
Right, right,
Yeah, so it's gotten worse.
right. So it's gotten worse. Yes. So the, anything having to do with the way that we look, weight or not weight, has been magnified, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. So can you discuss? I know that you said it's not a one-time thing. It's not like you read this book and all of a sudden you have a magical, beautiful relationship with food and
Right, right,
la di da.
right.
How does one start this process of healing their relationship with food at the same time? I get this comment a lot, like, because I have been promoting intuitive eating, things from your page, Rachel Tuckman, throughout social media. And I even had Rachel Tuckman come to our community one time last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, Karen, but I still want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do intuitive eating, I'll heal my relationship with food,
Mm-hmm.
but I still want to lose weight. I want to feel confident. And
Mm-hmm.
when I have extra pounds on me and I feel like I have rolls on my body, I don't feel happy. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel confident. And
Mm-hmm.
that affects not just me, it affects my relationships. It affects my relationship with my spouse and just in my job and whatever I do. So can someone balance intuitive eating yet at the same time want to lose weight?
So So the thing is about weight loss, which is an interesting thing, and this is another book I really recommend. It's called Anti-Diet by Christy Harrison. Um, is that we don't actually have any known way to lose weight in a healthy way. Okay, because like, we actually know that 90 to 95% of people who lose weight on a diet will gain it back within the first 5 years, and the people who do maintain their weight often do it at a very, very high cost, meaning most of their day revolves around what they eat and how they exercise. So they don't really have a life outside of maintaining their weight. Um, and even weight loss surgery comes with tons of complications. I actually have a blog post on Project Proactive about that.
Yes, I read that
Yeah, yeah.
about the surgery that people do to
Weight
lose
loss
weight,
surgery.
right?
Yeah, yeah. If people wanna read that. So it can't really go hand in hand. But like, let's say a client will say, like, I still want to lose weight. I'll tell them, for me, your goal is not weight loss, but you could have whatever goal you want, but this isn't to lose weight. Because we know now that, like, let's say BMI, or it's an arbitrary number, like, we don't, like, there's no, we don't see like that health correlation, like the media is promoting, or there's so many other confounding variables that people aren't testing for when they're doing their research or whatever. So I think also that, like, when you have this goal of weight loss and you deprive yourself, you almost always have binging or overeating or emotional eating, and it's like compounded because of the dieting, because you start to really, really mix your emotions up with your physical sensations. So like, let's say, for example, you're like, okay, I'm not eating pizza. And I always use, pizza is my favorite food. So
Hi,
I'm
me
not,
too. We have so many similarities, Gila.
yeah, seriously, we got to get together and have
Yes,
some pizza.
we'll have
I make really
pizza.
good pizza. Yeah. I got my pizza maker.
Okay, when
Yeah.
COVID's over, you're inviting me over for pizza.
Okay, perfect.
I'm gonna try it.
Okay, so let's say somebody's saying, okay, I'm on a diet and I'm not eating carbs, or I'm not eating pizza, whatever. So they deprive themselves. Inevitably, they eat the pizza because it only lasts for so long, right? You're at a party, at a some, it's a kid's party and there's no food. You were banking on a big salad there. You're starving. You haven't eaten since 10 o'clock and now it's 6 p.m. At 10 a.m. you haven't eaten and now it's 6 p.m. You're starving, and inevitably you eat the pizza. Then you feel this deep, you ate it. So you're like, screw it. I'm going to keep eating it. Then you eat 3 pieces, then 4 pieces, and you can't control yourself. You already ate. So you're having some Coke and you're feeling physically nauseous from the lack of eating, then the overeating. Now you're feeling super guilty. And now these two feelings have become intertwined. Okay, so now whenever you're feeling guilty, you're wondering, is this related to my food? Whenever you're feeling overstuffed, you're feeling guilty. When you're feeling guilty at a different time, it's relating to your body in a certain way. So you mix up all these emotions, and this is the way that I work with my clients. And it's not always like this, but I found that there's like this general process that I could do with my clients, which is like on the first few sessions, it's like unpacking their diet culture history. So like what it was like in their house as a child, were they rewarded for eating or not eating, or weight loss or not weight loss, right? Because then people have that issue also where they're praised to eat. Um, and then
Yeah.
I really want to help people figure out, what does hunger and fullness feel like physically in your body? Because that's become completely
Yeah.
like skewed, because you're eating, a diet's telling you what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat. So then when you're off the diet, you're doing what they call last supper eating. So you're eating even though you're not hungry, but you're never going to let yourself have the cake. So that's
Yeah.
just really, really confusing for people. So I want them to physically understand that this is subjective to the person, and that you have physical cues of hunger and fullness. The more you ignore them, the quieter they get, but we could reinstate them. And I really try to help them practice it. And, Rena Reiser says this, and I love it. Like, you could read a book on how to play guitar, but until you play it, it's not the same experientially. So intuitive eating is very experiential. Like, I'll have clients say to me like, oh, I would never, if I ate a piece of pizza, if I ate a piece of candy, I would never stop. And then like, we get to the principle, make peace with food. And they're like, I don't know what happened. There was candy and I wasn't eating it. And it was so weird. I never thought it would happen. I thought you were crazy. I thought intuitive eating was crazy. I never really believed it, And then I'm like, and Evelyn Tribole, one of the authors of Intuitive Eating, who's amazing, she always would say like, the experiential process is the most powerful for us and our clients. So a client who is in front of candy and isn't binging on it for the first time since they can remember, it's very powerful. It's very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. When you were speaking about the binging and the restriction leads to binging, I really resonate with that. I was doing that for years and years and years of my life.
Right.
Um, I was on every diet you can imagine, every single diet you name it, I was on that diet. And I felt like the next diet would be the savior, would be
Right.
that one diet that would get me to my goal weight, that would make me my dream body, and I
Right.
would achieve all my dreams.
I've
And
been
then
there.
what would happen? Every weekend, 2 a.m., parents were sleeping, everybody was sleeping. I go run downstairs and eat everything in the cupboard, in the refrigerator, in the freezer, until I felt so sick.
Right.
And I never actually threw up, but
You felt like it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to that point. And this was happening for years. Nobody knew about it.
Right.
And I found that I did this often on weekends, because weekends were a time when, like, you didn't have something to do, there wasn't any structure. And I'll come back from a night out and I felt empty and I had a void to fill. And I filled that void with food.
Right.
So thank God I'm way, way past that. I can go to a party and there could be a buffet of food and I won't go crazy.
Right.
I won't be like salivating and like being obsessive over the food I'm seeing, feeling I need to finish every single thing I see on the table.
Right. Right.
And I think part of that came when I got married. I feel like changing my environment, and also the fact that my husband was the first person I dated where I felt comfortable in my own skin. I didn't feel like he wanted to change me, change how I looked. Whereas in the past, when I was dating guys, I felt like, oh my God, now I have to like lose so much weight so he can accept me. But I didn't feel that with my husband. It was just like, he loved me for how I was, 10 pounds overweight, 10 pounds underweight. I mean, he prefers me on the chubbier side.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt that acceptance really helped me on my journey. And the fact that he likes to eat food too, like
Mm-hmm.
that's great for me. Like that
Mm-hmm.
heals my relationship with food, that I can
Right.
just enjoy food,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and now he's on a diet. So
Yeah. Yeah. I totally hear that. But actually it's funny because like I hear that a lot with somebody who's struggling with their relationship with food. They're often like there's some model in their life that's an intuitive eater naturally. And my husband's like that totally. He never went on a diet in his life. He was super athletic in high school. And I remember him telling me like he ate a box of fruit by the foot. I ate the whole box. I'm like, what? But
I
like
know, right?
he'd play hockey, like he was very athletic. So like totally different, like a growing boy, teenage boy, whatever. Um but yeah, that's common that like the first for you, that was probably the first model in your life that was like eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, food's yummy, and move on.
Right.
So he has no, like my husband also, like he has no concept of like why would I not eat that, like if I don't want it, I'm not in the mood, and I'm like not in the mood. Like now that's more where I'm holding like, and I still and this is what I do, but I do it because like I understand the struggle, and it doesn't mean that I always feel beautiful in my own body. It doesn't mean that I don't have those diet culture thoughts pop up into my
Yeah.
head all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but a lot of this is like values-based living. So like what you were saying before about what were you saying about like let's say your friends wanting to they say like I want to do intuitive eating, but I feel more confident in a smaller
Yeah.
body, right? So
Yeah.
like a lot of this is asking yourself like what your true values are, and like so that like let's say I use myself as an example. So I'm looking in the mirror and I'm not feeling super positive about what I'm seeing, right? And I'm like getting really curious about it, like I wonder why I'm feeling this way. Like did something trigger me? Am I having some sort of emotion relating to my body that has nothing to do with my body? I mean, this is because I know what to do. And it doesn't mean I always do it. It doesn't mean I'm always able to do it, but let's say, and then I'll like, maybe I should like not eat the bread. Today I had chicken for dinner. I just won't eat the bread. And then I'm like, I really, really want the bread. And then I'm like, why would I not eat the bread? Oh, because like diet culture has told me that like if I don't eat bread, then I'm going to be skinnier. And if I'm skinnier, then I'm going to be more loved and more accepted. And then I have to work on challenging my thought. Is that true? Who's going to love me more? Um, who do I care about who loves me more? Right. So I care about the people who I care about, and not about what people think about. I mean, in an ideal world, doesn't mean that I don't struggle with that um, in reality, but intellectually, I know that that's not part of my value system, and I'm going to keep working on my thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Totally. Unfortunately, a lot of people, struggle with that because the people around them, all their loved ones, even people that have husbands that don't want them to gain weight. They want them to be in a smaller body
Mm-hmm.
because that's how they looked when they got married. And in order to please their husbands and be a good wife, they they need to go on a diet and they need
Mm-hmm.
to lose weight to make their husbands happy.
Right.
So what would you say to those women?
So I can't say that I haven't had those women in my office. Um, I feel torn about that question because I think that there's still boundaries when it comes to a husband and a wife. And I don't think it's like if your husband went bald, like would you be like, I'll only love you if you like grow your hair back? Like
Right.
you could feel sad that your husband's bald, right? That's okay. You could feel sad that your wife is in a larger body, even though it pains me to say that. But I don't think it's anyone's like say what you do with your body. That's not everybody will agree with me. But
Right.
like I think I spoke about this with Ellie Chevalis on when I interviewed her for my podcast. But it's like such an interesting thing that we do with kids, right? Like we see them and we're like, you got so big, you're so much older now, wow. And like suddenly as an adult, you're like, don't get any bigger, don't
Yeah.
you like don't change, still wear your Shabbat clothes. Like what? Like it's
Yeah.
it's been 9 years since I got married. I had 3 kids. Like,
Yeah.
this body has produced 3 healthy children. Like, that's what I want to be thinking, you know? And I'm not saying that that's easy. That's not easy, and that's not always natural. But like, what's my core value is that this is my body, and my body helps me walk, and it helps me work, and it helps me move, and it's helped me birth 3 healthy babies. And yeah, I have stretch marks because I'm a woman that had 3 healthy babies, you know? And
Yeah.
even if I didn't, so that's, and I tell client, you know, if you followed me on Instagram, you know that I write on my bedroom wall.
Yes.
I'm very visual. So if this is a struggle for you, write it where you'll see it often enough to remind yourself that this is my core value. Because like I said before, if you've been surrounded by diet culture and you've been surrounded by voices telling you you're not good enough at this weight, you better combat that with positive voices if you want to see a change in your mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I wanted to make a comment about what you were saying about when kids are younger. Like, wow, you got so big.
Right.
In Farsi, you say, mashallah, like, wow, like, blian hara, beautiful. And when you said the opposite happens when they're adults, like, no,
Right.
you have to be smaller.
Right.
So it's also the same thing when kids are younger. I grew up in a culture where you're like, you have to finish your plates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In Farsi, they're like, bokhor, bokhor, bokhor,
Right.
like, eat,
Right.
eat, eat, eat. You have
Right.
to
Right. Right.
finish. My
Right.
grandmother, I remember like her chasing around with like a
Mm-hmm.
spoon of rice. You have to finish your
Right.
choresh.
Right. Right. Right.
And then there's a certain points when you turn like 16, 15, 16, 17, and it's like, no, don't finish your plate. You have to be a lady.
Mm-hmm.
You're not like an animal that you have to finish your plates.
Right. This mixed
So it's,
message.
yeah, it's that mixed
Right.
message that we were
Right.
talking about. So it's
Right.
interesting
Right.
that you said that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something interesting that I say this often is that did I just post about this on Instagram? That our belief systems, right? We don't choose our belief systems as children. We just absorb them. So that's why I always go back to the childhood and the memories about food. And it's very like I said before, it's very experiential. You'll bring up a memory about your childhood or your mother's food, or your mother's lack of food, or your dieting days, or how you bonded with food, or how you bonded with dieting, right? But so the belief system isn't your choice as a child. We just absorb it, just like you don't decide to be frum orthodox as a child. It's a belief system that we absorb. Now, what I like to do with diet culture or anything is that I say we're taking the content of the drawer out and we're dumping it on the table, and this is, you're going to observe your belief system that you've absorbed. And as an adult, you get to choose, what do I like and what do I not like? Does that mean that it's going to switch because you've decided? That's not what it means, right? Because if you have been programmed to have this belief system, but you do have a choice if you want to continue with that belief system. Enter intuitive eating. So I'm giving you a health at every size, anti-diet. I'm giving you a new belief system. And I've heard other dietitians say, like, try it on, you know, like, see how it feels. Like, maybe it's not completely aligned with your values. Do you have, is there nuance? 100%. Do you have to try it on and see where it fits you and where it doesn't fit you and how it works in your life and how it doesn't? 100%. But yeah, this is, you get to choose. That's your belief system.
I really love your approach. I just feel like you're so balanced. I'm seeing so much, just like so many extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And like when people are pushing an agenda, I'm just like, it's too much. It's
Right.
way too much. And I'm here talking to you, and you believe in how's it called? What is it called?
Haze, health at every
Haze,
size. Yeah.
health at every size.
Mm-hmm.
And you're bringing it up in such a practical way and saying like how you can choose to do this, and that it's all about like your values. And I love the way you're bringing it up because it's not like pushed down
Right.
on me.
Right.
You're
Right.
not like forcing me. You're not like angry. And I just feel like this anti-diet culture,
I know.
there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of anger behind it.
Right.
And it's not really like inspiring or motivating people to not go on a diet.
Right. Right. And not only that, like it's everyone's is autonomous to make a decision whether or not they want to go on a diet.
Yeah. Like if someone wants to go on a diet because they want to feel good about themselves, why do we have to get involved?
Right.
Why do we have to tell them what they can eat or can't eat, or how they have to tell other people what to do? I understand like there's certain people that push diets on other people, but maybe those people want a diet.
Right. Right.
Do you find anything wrong with that?
So I'm not like a believer of like unsolicited advice in general. Like I don't think anyone really likes that. Like,
Yeah.
just like if you're in shul and somebody would come over to be like, didn't you know you have to cover your hair? You'd be like, could you not talk to me like that? I'm an adult. So like it's the same thing with, which I think is disgusting. I don't think anyone should ever do that. I think that we never I don't want to get into such an intellectual conversation, but I remember Parol, going back to her, I love her. I love everything she says. And she
I'm
says,
going to be reading her books now.
oh my gosh. So she says, Bechira choice is 49% of things are too easy and 49% of things are too hard. And then there's that 1%. Does that make up 2%? Whatever. 49 points.
Yeah.
Whatever. And there's that one tiny like sliver of percent that's where you're gonna struggle, but not too much, right? So so I've like so she's very funny. So she says, like, let's say somebody would come to you and be like, Gila, I have a fridge in my basement. Can you please help me move it? And you'd be like, I'm really sorry, but like I cannot help you move a fridge, and they'd be like, make you feel really guilty, like your mother would have helped me. What's wrong with you? You'd be like, I hope you have enough emotional intelligence to say, I'm really sorry, but no, I cannot help you move a fridge up a flight of stairs. So that's going to be too much for you, right? So, what my point is that that's giving me a lot, like a really nice metaphor for like, we literally never know what people are struggling with, what anything that's going on in their lives. I know that firsthand. And,
Yeah.
if people feel like they're going to feel better on a diet, do I agree? I don't agree, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it. What does me agreeing or not agreeing have to do with it? Do I think that people get this false sense of worthiness because they lose weight and people compliment them? Yes, but do I believe that it's false? Do I believe that if I were to lose weight and people were to compliment me and I were to feel really good about myself, I hope that I could have enough emotional intelligence to say, I want people to think of me as somebody who is smart and intelligent and a good mother and a hard worker. What does my weight have to do with anything? Right? I want that. It doesn't mean that I always feel like that, but that's what I want. So if somebody doesn't feel like that, it's sad. I feel sad for them. But do I say something? Do they want my advice? They didn't ask me. You know what Peril says? Like, did I get paid to give a lecture? If I didn't, I close my mouth. Like, no one's paying you to give that advice, So like, it's different when somebody pays me and I come and speak, but like,
Yeah.
so, and again, like, I think my approach is very much like self-compassion and compassionate. Like, I understand why women sit around talking about their dieting. It's very bonding. Maybe it's very sad that they have nothing else to bond over. Isn't that sad?
It's not just dieting, it's also just anything about how they look.
Right. But I don't want that for my girls, for my daughter, so
Right.
I don't want to perpetuate that. I understand why women do it, but I think it's sad. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why, like, Rachel Tuckman and I were just talking about something that, like, she's amazing. She posted something and somebody was like, because of you, I practice different, or because of you. And I was like, thank you for telling me that. Because some days I do feel like I'm swimming upstream. And sometimes the people who are more intense get more engagement, get more followers. That's never my approach. I'm very middle of the road, so like that's just the way I am. And I think that positivity and growth and self-compassion breeds change. I don't think that yelling at someone, yelling at yourself, being harsh, it might make a small change in a tiny way for now, but it will never make lasting change. It's not motivating.
I love that. I love that. And I'm seeing from you that you believe in change, but the change that you are supporting is internal change.
Right.
It's a change that comes from within, whereas our culture is constantly telling us to change.
Mm-hmm.
Change your hair, change your
Well,
looks, change your
change your
weight.
weight. It's quantifiable, right?
It's
Okay,
all quantifiable. Yeah.
even if you even is it yeah even if you worked on yourself for a year doing intuitive eating, I don't see the number changing. You look the same, right? But that's not how it
Yeah.
works.
And it's the same thing with religion.
Right,
When people go for the gap year in Israel or they go to seminary, are people looking about how you change your midot,
right,
about how you grew as a person, how you developed your relationship with God? Or are they saying, oh, she's dressing tsanua now.
right, right,
Now she's deciding to cover her hair.
right,
People think I'm religious because I'm wearing hats every day.
right,
But do you know my relationship with God?
right.
Do you know how I act in private? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know I'm religious? So even with religion, it's based on what you appear to be, how you
Right,
look.
right. Which is normal because we can't really. I mean, sometimes we could tell if somebody changed internally because by the way they're behaving, but like as humans, we do like to quantify things and we do like the numbers and the comparing. It's just kind of the way our brains work. So it makes sense. But that's why this work, like you asked me before, like this is very deep, hard work. And so many of my women are like, I can't believe I'm crying to my dietitian. I'm like, you're the fourth person today. Like, this is really hard to say, like, wow. Or what about the woman who said, like, I've been dieting for 20 years. Like, I can't believe this was like false. Like I gave my life to this. That's really hard. It's really painful. But
Yeah.
like there, okay, what did it help you? How did it serve you? What could we do with it? What did you learn? And then we move past it.
You're not just a intuitive eating counselor, but you're also helping people connect with themselves. I mean, which is what intuitive eating is all about. It's not just about the food you're eating. It's about being curious. Why are you acting the way you're acting? Why are you feeling a certain way? Why are you reaching out for that? Are you
Mm-hmm.
really hungry?
Right,
Or do you feel full right now?
right,
It's all connected to everything else that you were
right,
talking about.
right,
It's very interesting.
right. And that's why the skills that you learn with intuitive eating, you get to learn with life skills. Like you get to ask yourself, like, do I really want to go with that person? How does that person make me feel? Is my gut telling me something? Is it not? And like maybe we never got to really listen to those cues, and our bodies tell us a lot of things.
Right. You mentioned something before about um, eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full.
Hmm.
With intuitive eating, is it ever okay to eat when you're not hungry?
Yeah, so totally. So I'll say that a lot of intuitive eating people like they sort of like take what they want, leave what they don't. But like, I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, like, they're just like, there's a principle like make peace with food, which is sort of like exposure therapy. And people just like are like, oh, that's intuitive eating. That's like one part of intuitive eating. But like with hunger and fullness, people turn that into a hunger fullness diet. It doesn't mean that you only could eat when you're hungry and you have to stop when you're full. I'm sorry, that's my victory alarm. um
What's a
so
victory alarm? We'll learn about that
Oh
later.
yeah, yeah. So that's from Carol also. So basically with hunger and fullness, right? So um I try to help people understand like what hunger feels like in their body. Like I was saying before, that dieting turns off those cues, and we learn a lot of mistrust, like not to trust what our bodies are telling us. So first of all, a body needs to be fed every 2 to 3 hours, most people. And there's meal hunger and there's snack hunger. There's different variation of hunger. Maybe you're completely empty like on a fast day, or maybe you're what we call polite hunger, like you're looking forward to like a satisfying meal. So really honing in on how you're really feeling physically is going to help you match what you need at that meal. And the same thing with fullness, which I'll just say interestingly, is that clients tell me it's much easier to feed themselves when they're hungry than to stop eating when they're full. And that's a whole different story because they're the pattern of overeating
Yeah.
has served them in a lot of ways. Um, Feeling like even though they know they're not on a diet, that one day they'll be put on a diet, so they're afraid. So then there's like this like practical in between where you're like, I'm not really hungry right now, but I'm going to a show in an hour and everybody else is eating, so I'm going to eat. That's practical. And then there's like, of course, there's an emotional eating component, which is beautiful, which is like I always say, like when a
It gets a
baby's
bad
born,
rap usually.
it gets a really bad, yes. So
Like
like
you
when a
shouldn't
baby's,
ever eat when you're
right,
emotional. You shouldn't ever eat when
right,
you're sad. I'm like, bar of chocolate is pretty good when I'm sad right now.
right, right. And also like, think about it, like
When I'm
it's
happy.
what about like at people's weddings or at people's whatever funerals, or when somebody's sick and you bring them a meal? Food is love and comfort and joy. And what about like our traditions, like as Jews? It's
Yeah.
everything. It's Hashem, like I say, like Hashem made us have to breathe and he made us have to eat, but eating is pleasurable for what?
Yeah.
For a reason, right? So when a baby's born, a baby will drink from his or her mother, either a bottle or formula, I mean a bottle or from his mother, and he's getting like lactose, sweet milk, and the baby is getting so much more than the nutrients. The baby's getting love and comfort and closeness and being taken care of, right? And hundreds of emotions that a baby learns all throughout the first few minutes of birth and even in utero and all those things. And and
Yeah.
how excited do we get when we give our child their first meal and they're putting it in their mouth and they're trying to make sense of it? It's so much connection. Like it's such a beautiful thing. So do we associate emotions with food? It's just natural. It's just part of life. And sadly, it's become a sad thing, but it's a
Yeah.
really, really beautiful thing. So I'll say like using food to cope with your emotions some of the time is a beautiful thing. If it's the only way you know how to cope with your emotions, you're definitely being negligent of your emotions.
Right. Okay.
That's where I come in and I start to help you. Why did you eat? Were you hungry? Were you emotional? Or was it something else, or a combination of, is it habit? Is it just there? Do you have to move it?
Are you tired?
Are you
Sometimes
just
people eat when they're too
self-care?
tired. Right.
Is it your
Self-care.
only form of self-care? Is it your only form of pleasure? So then if it's your only form of pleasure, you're going to be more food seeking, right? And let's say with the love languages, which I talk about a lot, is like, what is your love language? And can you fill your love tank? Because maybe food has filled that for you, right? Or like if Chas v'shalom, someone's going through a divorce or somebody has lost someone in their life, food's a constant best friend. It's always there. So that's real. It sounds like dramatic, but that's real. I hear that all the time. And I could relate to that, right? So like like as you know, like my mother passed away like 2.5 years ago and it was very sudden. And
Yeah.
my son was born a few days later. And I remember saying to my husband, please get me some ice cream. And he didn't come home with it. And I was like, that was
Oh
the
my.
only joy of my day today. Like, but like I was completely aware that that was an emotional thing, but like I gave myself the grace, like I
Yeah.
needed that, So like you said before about like the chocolate, like that's okay. Like
Yeah.
that's okay. Sometimes you're going to use chocolate and sometimes you're going to call a friend and sometimes you're going to get a really good cry and sometimes you're going to do something destructive. But like we're humans. Like we
Yeah.
need that grace basically.
I love that. I love that, Gila.
Mm.
Gila, I could do like part 2 and
I
3.
know. I really wanted to interview you. I don't even know how you
No,
started
no.
your podcast. I don't even
This
know
is not
why you
about
do.
me. This
Well,
is
you're
all
gonna
about
come.
you.
Are you gonna come on my podcast next?
Hopefully one day, God willing.
Okay.
It's the listeners to listen to your perspective, your journey, and what you do to help people not only heal their relationship with food, but heal their relationship with themselves. And I'm seeing that intuitive eating is not just about food and eating, it's about self care.
Mm-hmm.
It's about self care. If there's one piece of advice you can give to our listeners about food and life, what would that
Mm-hmm.
be?
One piece of advice. Oh gosh. One.
To end off the show.
Oh gosh, because I could like I don't know how to give people one piece of advice. I would say read the intuitive eating book. Please read it. Don't comment on my things and be like, I don't get it. Read it. Please read it. Because there's so much information in there.
Read it,
I,
take notes, highlight,
yeah,
make
and
it your book.
this is what I say, which came up a lot in this session, is that again, if you've been surrounded by diet culture, like immerse yourself in intuitive eating culture, like in a positive way. Like listen to my podcast, listen to Evelyn Tripoli's interviewed a bunch of times. Rena Reiser has a podcast. There's a Facebook group for Firm Women, intuitive eating.
Yes. I actually have a
Okay.
different question for you. It just came
Yeah.
up now that you said
Yeah.
that.
Go for it.
Okay. What's one piece of advice you would give to women who want to perhaps start this journey of intuitive eating, but who are surrounded by diet culture, whether it's in their family, their
Mhm.
friends, their community? How can they, you know, start this journey when everybody is not on that journey?
So that's a really good question. I guess it would be an individualized type of answer, but I say like sometimes I do like liken this to like let's say becoming from something like that. Like that's like really hard. And I grew up from, but like let's say like I have friends who didn't grow up from and like everyone around them is like, like eating non-kosher, making fun of them or whatever. And they're like, well, my value system is telling me that this is what I want. So like I'm not gonna say that it's easy. I'm really not gonna say it's easy. It's not, but like and you could do this very slowly, and you could see like also like you don't have to shove this down people's throat. I know people like to do that, but like this could be a private journey. This could be something that you take on one principle at a time. Buy the intuitive eating workbook. It has amazing um practices and it's like $15 on Amazon. It's like amazing. And listen, like definitely, even if you are surrounded by diet culture, continue to do what I just said. Like that's been one of the best pieces of advice that I've given, and I've heard that feedback from clients. Like I listened to podcasts, like journaled, I read the book, I read Christy Harrison's book, like anti-diet. I only follow intuitive eating accounts. Like like notice like where you're starting to feel triggered on Instagram. Like it's really hard because, Rachel Tuckman says like hate following someone. I'm like, yeah, it's the real thing, like
Yeah.
it bothers you and you feel triggered and whatever, but like we like drama, I guess. But like if the stronger your boundaries are in a realistic way, like I don't mean isolate yourself. I just mean the stronger your boundaries are in a realistic way, the better off you're going to be, which is hard, but worth it.
Yeah, that's so true. Who you surround yourself with is so important, and it does impact your journey as well.
Yeah. And if you're saying like intuitive eating makes you live more like intuitively, sometimes people quit their jobs and sometimes people make new friends. And that's really sounds dramatic, but sometimes that's like a wake up call. Like, who am I surrounded by? For goodness sake,
Wow. Wow. We're going to end it with that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Gila, where can people find you?
Okay, so you could go to my website, www.gilaglassberg.com. It's just my name. You could look, I have lots of resources there, podcasts, blog posts. You could contact me through my website, or you could email me, gilaglassberg18@gmail.com. And I'm on Instagram at gila.glassberg.intuitiverd. I also have a podcast called Get Into It. Get it? With Gila.
Yes, I love it. You guys should listen to her podcast and check out her website, gilaglassberg.com. Gila, thank you so much for being on the show today. I look forward to having more conversations with you, and I look forward to coming over for pizza one night.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, bye.